I live alone in a ground-floor apartment in Milwaukee. It's not the best neighborhood, but it's what I could afford on a warehouse worker's salary. I work the early shift, 4 a.m. to noon, so I'm usually in bed by 9 p.m. That night, I'd gone to bed around 8:30. I was exhausted from a long shift. I remember turning off the lights, checking my phone one last time, and falling asleep pretty quick. I woke up to my cat, Diesel, pawing at my face. He doesn't usually come in the bedroom. He's more of a living room cat. I looked at my phone, 11:47 p.m. Diesel was acting weird, walking back and forth on the bed, his tail all puffed up. Then I heard it, the sound that made everything in my body go cold. Someone was humming in my kitchen. Not singing. Humming. This low, casual humming, like someone does when they're comfortable, when they're relaxed, when they belong somewhere. My bedroom door was closed but not locked. The humming continued, and then I heard cabinets opening and closing. The distinctive sound of plates being moved. My refrigerator opening. I reached for my phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on. Dead battery. I always charge it overnight, but I'd forgotten to plug it in. My landline was in the kitchen, where the humming was coming from. The humming stopped. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming down the hallway toward my bedroom. I did the only thing I could think of. I rolled off the bed and underneath it. It's an old metal frame, high enough off the ground that I could fit, barely. Diesel jumped down and ran into the closet. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. The doorknob turned slowly. I could see from under the bed. Work boots. Dirty, worn work boots. The door opened and the boots walked into my room. He stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably 30 seconds. Then he walked to my bed. I could see him from the ankles down. He was wearing dirty jeans. He sat on my bed. The mattress sagged, almost touching my back. He started humming again. The same tune. Sitting on my bed in the dark, humming. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "I know you're awake." I didn't move, didn't breathe. "I saw your cat run. Cats only run when their owner is awake." He stood up, started walking around the room. He opened my closet. "Not in here." Opened my dresser drawers, pulling clothes out, dropping them on the floor. "Not hiding in here either." Then he got on his knees. I could see his face for the first time as he looked under the bed. Mid-30s, stubble, eyes that looked completely calm, almost friendly. "There you are." I scrambled out the other side, but he was faster. He grabbed my ankle as I tried to run. I kicked back, connected with his face, heard him grunt. I made it to the bedroom door, but he tackled me in the hallway. We fought. I'm not a fighter, never have been, but adrenaline is powerful. I remember elbowing him in the ribs, him putting his hands around my throat. I reached up, found his eyes, pressed with my thumbs as hard as I could. He screamed, "Let go," and I ran. I made it to my front door, but it was chained from the inside. He'd chained my own door. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get it undone. I could hear him getting up, cursing, coming after me. I gave up on the chain and ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife. He came around the corner, saw the knife, and smiled. Actually smiled. "You don't have it in you," he said. He was wrong. He lunged at me and I didn't think, just reacted. The knife went in his shoulder. He screamed, pulled back, and the knife came with him. Blood was everywhere. He looked at the knife sticking out of his shoulder, then at me, and his whole demeanor changed. The calm was gone. He looked scared. He turned and ran out my front door, breaking the chain, leaving blood drops everywhere. I ran to my neighbor's apartment, pounded on the door until they answered, and called 911 from their phone. The police found him 6 blocks away, passed out from blood loss. Turns out he was my upstairs neighbor. I'd never officially met him, just seen him in passing. He'd been watching me for months, knew my schedule, had made a copy of my key somehow. They found a journal in his apartment, pages and pages about me, what I ate for dinner, what I watched on TV, how I looked when I slept, which means this wasn't his first time in my apartment. He'd written that he was building up courage for the real thing. I don't know what the real thing was, and I don't want to know. The detective told me I was lucky. Said most people freeze in those situations, but I fought back. I don't feel lucky. I feel like I'll never sleep peacefully again. The complex let me break my lease. I'm staying with my brother until I find a new place. Somewhere with multiple locks, on a higher floor, with security cameras. Diesel saved my life. If he hadn't woken me up, if I hadn't heard the humming, I would have woken up to him standing over me. Or maybe I wouldn't have woken up at all. The man is in custody. Charged with breaking and entering, assault, and attempted something. Hopefully he doesn't get out anytime soon. Still, every night when I try to sleep, I hear humming. I had just bought my first house, a small 2-bedroom in rural Ohio. It was a fixer-upper, needed work, but it was mine. I'd been living there for about 3 weeks when this happened. The house sits on about an acre of land, with woods on 3 sides. My nearest neighbor is a 1/4 mile away. I like the privacy, the quiet. I work in IT, fully remote, so I could live anywhere. I chose isolation. That was my first mistake. It was a Thursday night. I'd been working late on a server migration, didn't finish until almost 1 a.m. I was making some late dinner, just heating up leftover pizza, when I noticed something odd through my kitchen window. There was a light in the woods. Not a flashlight, more like a camping lantern. It was maybe 100 yards from my house, just visible through the trees. I watched it for a minute, thinking maybe it was hunters or kids camping, but it wasn't moving, just sitting there. I went back to my pizza, figured I'd check again in the morning if it was still there. But when I looked out the window again, the light was closer, maybe 50 yards now. Still not moving, just closer. That's when the power went out. Complete darkness. The house went silent. No hum from the refrigerator, no fan from my computer. Just silence. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight. My first thought was to check the breaker box, but that was in the basement, and something about going down there in the dark felt wrong. Instead, I went back to the window. The light in the woods was gone. I stood there, phone flashlight in hand, peering into the darkness. That's when I saw them. 4 figures standing at the edge of my property where the yard meets the woods. Just standing there, perfectly still, facing my house. I backed away from the window, heart pounding. Checked my phone, no signal. I live in a dead zone, rely on Wi-Fi calling. But with the power out, I had nothing. My car was in the driveway. I could make a run for it. I grabbed my keys, went to the front door and stopped. Through the small window beside the door, I could see someone standing next to my car. Just standing there, facing the house. I ran to the back door. 2 more figures in the backyard, spread out like they were covering exits. They weren't trying to get in. They were making sure I couldn't get out. I went upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door. From my window I could see more clearly. There were 7 of them that I could count. All wearing dark clothes. All just standing there, watching the house. Then one of them moved. Walked right up to my front door. Knocked 3 times, calm and measured. I didn't answer. They knocked again. Then tried the doorknob. I'd locked it, thank God. They moved to the window beside the door. I heard tapping on the glass, then scraping, then a crack as the window broke. I heard them reaching in, unlocking the door from inside, the door opening. Footsteps. Multiple sets of footsteps entering my house. They weren't trying to be quiet. They were walking normally, opening doors, moving things around. I could hear them talking to each other, but I couldn't make out the words. Footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Steady. Multiple people coming up. I did the only thing I could think of. I opened my bedroom window and climbed out onto the roof. It was a shallow slope, and I managed to make it to the edge above the back porch. It was about a 12-foot drop. Below me, one of the figures was still standing in the backyard, but they were facing the house, not looking up. I hung from the gutter, dropped, landed hard but kept my feet. The figure turned toward me. I ran, sprinted toward the woods, crashed through branches, stumbled over roots. I could hear them behind me, not running but walking fast, calling out to each other. I had the advantage of adrenaline and fear. I ran for maybe 10 minutes before I found the road, Followed it to my nearest neighbor's house, pounded on their door until they answered. They let me in, called the police. When the police got to my house, it was empty. The front door was open, the window was broken, but nobody was there. Inside, they'd moved things around. Furniture rearranged, drawers opened, clothes laid out on the bed. But nothing was stolen. They found the spot in the woods where the light had been. A battery-powered lantern, still on, and the grass was matted down where people had been standing. But no other evidence. No footprints clear enough to use, no fingerprints in the house. The detective had a theory. He said it might have been a group that scouts rural properties for some reason. Theft, squatting, who knows? He said I was lucky I ran when I did. But here's what haunts me. In my bedroom, on my pillow, they'd left a note. All it said was, "Not this one. To alert." What were they looking for? What happens to the ones who aren't alert enough? I moved back to the city the next week. Sold the house at a loss, didn't care. I live in a high-rise apartment now with a doorman, security cameras, lots of neighbors. But sometimes at night, I still think about those figures standing at the edge of the woods, perfectly still, just watching, waiting. And I wonder how many other houses they've watched, how many other people weren't alert enough. My name is Rachel, and this happened to me about 6 months ago. I'm a single mom with a 7-year-old daughter named Emma. We live in a 2-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside of Phoenix. It's one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows each other. Kids play in the street until dark, that kind of place. I work from home as a graphic designer, so I'm usually there during the day while Emma's at school. The house has this layout where the master bedroom is downstairs and Emma's room is upstairs along with 2 spare bedrooms and a bathroom. This becomes important later. It was a Tuesday in May, nothing special about the day. I picked Emma up from school around 3, made her a snack, and she went upstairs to play in her room while I finished up some work in my home office. Around 5 p.m., she came downstairs and said something that made me pause. "Mom, why did you put all that food in my closet?" I looked up from my computer. "What food, honey?" She shrugged. "There's crackers and stuff in my closet, and it smells weird." Kids say random things all the time, so I figured maybe she'd stashed some snacks and forgotten about them. I told her I'd check it out after dinner. But she kept bringing it up. During dinner, she mentioned the smell again. Said it was like Daddy's gym bag. Her dad and I are divorced, but she remembered that specific smell. After dinner, I went upstairs with her to check it out. Her closet is one of those walk-in types, not huge, but big enough to stand in. When I opened the door, the smell hit me immediately. Body odor, strong body odor. There were indeed crackers on the floor, a box of Ritz crackers I didn't recognize, and a water bottle, and something else that made my blood run cold, a pillow from one of the spare bedrooms. Emma was behind me saying, "See, I told you." But my mind was racing. I grabbed her hand and said, "Let's go downstairs," trying to keep my voice normal. We went down, and I told her to watch TV while I made a phone call. Then I took my phone into the bathroom, locked the door, and called 911. I whispered to the dispatcher that I thought someone had been in my house. They sent officers immediately. I grabbed Emma, told her we were going to wait outside for some friends, and we sat in my car in the driveway. When the police arrived, 2 officers went in while 1 stayed with us. I gave them the layout, told them about the closet. They were in there for maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. When they came out, 1 officer's face told me everything. They found evidence someone had been staying in the closet, not just staying, living there. They found more food wrappers stuffed behind Emma's stored winter clothes. They found a jar. I'm not going to say what was in it, but you can guess. And they found a notebook. The notebook was the worst part. It had our schedules written down. When I left for grocery shopping, when Emma got home from school, when we typically went to bed. But that wasn't even the most terrifying part. There were drawings, sketches of Emma sleeping, detailed sketches, which meant he'd been coming out at night, standing over her bed, watching her sleep, and then going back into the closet. The police checked everything. In the spare bedroom next to Emma's room, the window was unlocked. There were marks on the frame where someone had been coming and going. They figured he'd been getting in when we weren't home, hiding in the closet during the day while I worked downstairs, coming out at night to use the bathroom and get food from our kitchen, then returning before we woke up. 3 days. Based on the evidence, they estimated he'd been in our house for 3 days. 3 nights of him standing over my daughter while she slept. 3 days of him hiding just feet away from where she played. They never caught him. There were no fingerprints. He'd worn gloves. The notebook was generic, sold everywhere. The sketches could have been anyone's. We stayed in a hotel for a week while I had new locks installed, an alarm system, cameras, everything. Emma doesn't know the full truth. I told her someone had broken in, but we scared them away. She still asks sometimes why she can't sleep in her old room anymore, why she has to sleep in my room now. I turned her entire upstairs bedroom into storage. I couldn't let her sleep in there again. The thing that haunts me isn't just that he was there. It's thinking about what he was planning. Why study our schedules? Why watch her sleep? What was he waiting for? I check every closet, every night. I have cameras in every room now except the bathrooms. Emma thinks I'm overprotective when I won't let her play upstairs alone. But she doesn't know that for 3 days, a stranger was living in our house, watching us, planning something. We're moving next month. I found a single-story house with no walk-in closets.